In the small, quiet town of Willow Creek, life moved at a slow pace. The high school was no different. Predictable routines, familiar faces, and cliques that had been carved in stone since middle school. But one day, everything changed when a new student walked into the halls. Her name wasn't known to anyone yet, but her presence was impossible to ignore. She was tall, with striking features and long braids that cascaded down her back like a waterfall of intricate patterns. She carried herself with an air of calm confidence, as if she already knew this place inside out, even though it was her first day. People couldn't help but stare. Some whispered about how she looked different, while others admired her effortless style. It was clear from the start, she didn't fit into any of the usual boxes at Willow Creek High. The new girl came during the middle of the school year, which was rare. Transfers usually happened over summer or at the beginning of semesters, so everyone was curious. Word spread quickly among students that she had moved from a big city, a place far more exciting than this sleepy little town. This only added to the mystery surrounding her. What brought her here? Why leave behind the bright lights for a place where nothing ever happened? As she made her way through the crowded hallways on her first day, teachers introduced her briefly. In each class, she gave polite smiles and nodded whenever someone asked if she had questions, but she kept mostly to herself. There was something about her silence. It wasn't shy or awkward. It felt deliberate, almost powerful. Like she was observing everything before deciding what to say or do next. Of course, not everyone welcomed her arrival with open arms. At Willow Creek High, there was a group of 4 girls who ruled the school like queens. Everyone knew them, the kind of people you either wanted to be friends with or avoided at all costs. They called themselves the Elite Four, though no one dared say that to their faces unless they were part of their inner circle. These girls thrived on drama, gossip, and making sure everyone else stayed in line. Their leader was a sharp-tongued girl who always wore designer clothes and perfectly styled hair. She had a knack for spotting anyone who might challenge her status, and she wasted no time putting them in their place. Beside her was her closest friend, a quick-witted sidekick who could cut someone down with just a few words. Then there was the enforcer, a tall, athletic girl who rarely spoke but let her actions speak for her. And finally, there was the tech-savvy member of the group, constantly glued to her phone, capturing every moment to share online. When the Elite Four noticed the new girl walking into homeroom, they exchanged glances. To them, she seemed like just another transfer student trying to find her footing. Nothing special. Or so they thought, but things took a turn later that morning during chemistry class. Their teacher, known for being tough but fair, handed out a surprise quiz. Most students groaned, knowing they weren't prepared, but the new girl didn't flinch. She picked up her pencil and started writing, her movements steady and focused. By the end of the period, she had finished early and slipped the paper onto the teacher's desk. The teacher scanned her answers and raised an eyebrow. "Impressive work," he said aloud, loud enough for the entire class to hear. "Looks like we have a natural chemist in our midst." A murmur rippled through the room. The Elite Four exchanged uneasy looks. They weren't used to sharing the spotlight, especially with someone new. The leader narrowed her eyes, studying the girl carefully. Something about her calm demeanor irritated her. How dare this stranger waltz in and impress their toughest teacher within minutes? By lunchtime, whispers filled the cafeteria. Some kids admired the new girl's confidence, while others wondered how long it would take for the Elite Four to put her in her place. After all, no one crossed them without consequences. Little did anyone know those consequences were about to unfold in a way no one expected. For now, the new girl sat alone at a corner table, eating quietly and watching the world around her. She didn't seem bothered by the attention or lack thereof. If anything, she appeared content to stay in the background, observing the dynamics of her new environment. But deep down, she understood something important. High school wasn't just about grades or friendships. It was a game, and she intended to play it on her own terms. Little did anyone realize, the quiet new girl wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was a force waiting to be unleashed, and the Elite Four were about to learn that the hard way. The tension in the air grew thicker with each passing day. The new girl's quiet confidence had started to ruffle feathers, especially among the Elite Four. They weren't used to sharing the spotlight or any kind of attention with someone who didn't bow down to their authority. For them, high school was a stage, and they were the main act. But now, it felt like this stranger from the city was trying to steal their scene. It all came to a head during history class one afternoon. The room buzzed with low chatter as students flipped through textbooks or doodled absent-mindedly in their notebooks. The teacher hadn't arrived yet, so everyone took advantage of the few extra minutes to relax. Most kids were too busy talking or scrolling on their phones to notice what was happening at the back of the classroom. That's where the trouble began. The leader of the Elite Four leaned over from her seat toward the new girl, who sat quietly at her desk organizing her notes. Without warning, she reached out and grabbed one of the new girl's thick braids. It happened so fast that no one saw it coming, not even the new girl herself. She flinched as her head snapped back slightly, but before she could react, the leader pulled a small pair of scissors from her bag. With a smug grin, she snipped clean through two of the new girl's braids. The sound of the scissors slicing through hair echoed in the otherwise noisy room. Strands fell onto the floor like broken pieces of a puzzle. Gasps rippled through the class as heads turned to see what had just occurred. Some students covered their mouths in shock, while others exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether to laugh or step in. The leader tossed the severed braids onto the new girl's desk, her lips curling into a satisfied smirk. "Oops," she said loudly enough for nearby students to hear. Her tone dripped with mockery, not remorse. "Guess you should have tied those tighter." Her sidekick burst into laughter, clapping her hands dramatically as if she were watching a comedy show. "Wow, that was iconic," she chimed in, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Maybe next time you'll think twice about showing off your little city vibes around here." The enforcer of the group didn't say anything, but her arms were crossed tightly over her chest, her expression unreadable. Even she seemed uncomfortable with how far things had gone, though she didn't dare speak up against her leader. And the fourth member of the clique, glued to her phone as always, quickly snapped a picture of the scene, giggling under her breath as she typed out a caption for social media. Meanwhile, the new girl sat frozen in her seat, staring blankly at the strands of hair lying on her desk. Her face remained completely expressionless, no tears, no anger, no protest. Just silence. For a moment, it felt like time stood still. No one knew what to expect. Would she cry? Yell? Run out of the room? But none of that happened. Instead, she slowly bent down and picked up the fallen braids, wrapping them carefully in a piece of notebook paper. Then, without saying a single word, she slipped them into her bag and continued organizing her notes as if nothing had happened. The bell rang moments later, jolting everyone out of their stunned silence. Students scrambled to gather their things and leave the room, eager to escape the awkward tension. As the new girl stood up and walked toward the door, her movements were calm and deliberate. She didn't look back at the Elite Four, nor did she acknowledge the whispers following her down the hallway. She didn't even fight back. Someone muttered as she passed by, "What's wrong with her?" Others weren't so quick to judge. A few sympathetic glances followed her as she disappeared into the crowd. Deep down, some students admired her composure. Cutting someone's hair in public was cruel, even by high school standards, and yet she hadn't let them see her break. Whether it was courage, pride, or something else entirely, no one could tell. For the rest of the day, rumors spread like wildfire. Everyone had an opinion about what had happened. Some sided with the Elite Four, claiming the new girl deserved it because she thought she was better than everyone. Others defended her, pointing out how unfair and mean-spirited the whole thing had been. By the end of the school day, nearly every student had heard about the incident in history class. But despite the chaos swirling around her, the new girl kept to herself. She didn't confront the Elite Four, nor did she try to explain herself to anyone. During lunch, she sat alone at a corner table, eating quietly and avoiding eye contact with anyone who dared approach her. After school, she walked home without speaking to anyone, her pace steady and unhurried. What no one realized was that behind her calm exterior, something inside her had shifted. The humiliation of having her braids cut off in front of everyone wasn't lost on her. It stung more than she cared to admit. But instead of letting it consume her, she channeled her emotions into something else: focus. That evening, after finishing her homework, she sat at her desk with her laptop open. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she searched for information on bullying laws, school policies, and ways to protect herself from further harassment. She read articles, watched videos, and bookmarked pages filled with advice on handling difficult situations. But she didn't stop there. She also started thinking about the Elite Four, their habits, their weaknesses, their vulnerabilities. She observed them closely during classes, noting how reliant they were on their phones, how they thrived on attention, and how fragile their egos truly were. Slowly but surely, a plan began forming in her mind. It wasn't revenge, not exactly, but rather a way to reclaim the power they had tried to take from her. By the time she turned off her laptop and climbed into bed that night, she felt a strange sense of calm. Tomorrow would be different, she told herself. Tomorrow she would start taking back control. And when the moment came, she wouldn't hesitate, because sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's strength. The days that followed the Braids incident were anything but ordinary at Willow Creek High. The story of what happened in history class spread like wildfire, igniting conversations in hallways, classrooms, and even online. Social media became a battleground where opinions clashed and sides were chosen. Some students defended the new girl, calling out the cruelty of the act, while others sided with the Elite Four, claiming she had brought it upon herself by being too proud or different. But amidst all the noise, one thing remained constant: the new girl's silence. She didn't post anything online to defend herself, nor did she confront her bullies face to face. Instead, she carried herself with an unshakable calm, as if nothing could touch her. Her quiet demeanor only fueled more curiosity and fear among her classmates. No one knew what she was thinking or planning, and that uncertainty made people uneasy. Meanwhile, the Elite Four strutted through the halls like nothing unusual had happened. Their leader seemed particularly pleased with herself, smirking whenever she passed the new girl in the corridor. It was clear she saw the incident as a victory, a way to remind everyone who held the real power in school. But there was something off about her confidence now. Occasionally, she'd glance over her shoulder, almost as if she expected retaliation. Yet, when nothing came, her smirk only grew wider. What no one realized was that the new girl wasn't idle. Beneath her composed exterior, she was working tirelessly on a plan, one that would turn the tables without resentment or violence. During lunch breaks, she spent hours in the library, diving deep into research. At first, her searches focused on understanding bullying laws and school policies, but soon her curiosity took a different turn. She stumbled across articles and videos about technology, specifically how everyday devices like phones could be disrupted using simple tools. Her interest peaked when she discovered something called an electromagnetic pulse amp. It sounded complicated at first, but as she watched tutorials and read step-by-step guides, she realized it wasn't as far-fetched as it seemed. An EMP could disable electronic devices within a certain range, rendering them useless. To most people, this might have been just another piece of trivia, but to her, it felt like the perfect solution. She decided to build her own EMP device, not for destruction, but for disruption. She figured out how to disguise it as something ordinary, like a pencil case, so no one would suspect a thing. Every evening after school, she worked on assembling the components, testing and retesting until she was confident it would work exactly as intended. Her hands-on approach gave her a strange sense of satisfaction, as if she were reclaiming not just her dignity, but also her control over the situation. While she worked behind the scenes, life at school continued its usual chaotic rhythm. The Elite Four, however, weren't immune to the growing tension. Rumors swirled about potential backlash from the new girl, though no one had any concrete evidence to support them. Still, the uncertainty gnawed at them, especially their tech-savvy member. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Though she couldn't quite put her finger on it. One afternoon during lunch, the Elite Four gathered at their usual table near the cafeteria windows. They sat close together, scrolling endlessly on their phones, sharing memes and gossiping about other students. Their leader scrolled through her Instagram feed, liking photos and leaving snarky comments under posts from kids she disliked. Her sidekick filmed a quick video mocking someone's outfit, giggling as she edited it before posting. The enforcer leaned back in her chair, half listening to their chatter while keeping an eye on the rest of the room. And the fourth member, the one obsessed with her phone, was busy texting friends and checking notifications every few seconds. Unbeknownst to them, the new girl walked past their table, clutching what appeared to be a plain pencil case. As she moved, she casually placed it near the edge of their table, right beside the leader's phone. No one noticed her doing it. They were too absorbed in their screens to pay attention. Within moments, she slipped away, disappearing into the Feyvinma crowd of students heading toward the trash cans or lining up for food. Minutes later, chaos erupted. One by one, the Elite Four realized their phones weren't working. At first, they thought it was a glitch, maybe a dead battery or poor signal. But when none of them could turn their devices back on, panic set in. The leader frantically tapped her screen, shaking her phone and pressing buttons repeatedly, but nothing happened. Her sidekick accused nearby students of tampering with their devices, her voice rising above the cafeteria noise. The enforcer clenched her fists, scanning the room for anyone suspicious, while the fourth member burst into tears, lamenting the loss of years' worth of photos and private messages. Teachers rushed over to investigate, asking questions and trying to calm the situation. Students whispered among themselves, speculating about what could have caused such a bizarre malfunction. Some joked that aliens had attacked, while others suggested it might be a prank gone wrong. No one suspected the new girl. After all, she hadn't said a word since the Braids incident. How could someone so silent and unassuming pull off something like this? As the commotion unfolded, the new girl stood quietly near the cafeteria doors, watching everything with a faint smile playing on her lips. She didn't look triumphant or vengeful, just satisfied. For the first time in days, she felt a sense of balance returning. The Elite Four had tried to strip her of her power, but she had found a way to take it back without stooping to their level. By the end of the day, news of the shattered phones dominated every conversation. The Elite Four were devastated, their carefully curated online personas crumbling along with their devices. Without their phones, they lost access to their social media empires, the platforms they used to bully, intimidate, and control others. For once, they were vulnerable, exposed to the same judgment and scrutiny they had inflicted on countless students before. As for the new girl, she walked home that evening with her head held high. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The Elite Four wouldn't let this go without a fight. But she also knew she had struck a blow that couldn't be ignored. In her mind, this wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. And justice, she believed, was worth waiting for. The morning after the cafeteria incident, Willow Creek High buzzed with a new kind of energy. The shattered phones had become the talk of the school. Everyone wanted to know what had happened, who was behind it, and why. For the Elite Four, however, it wasn't just gossip. It was a full-blown crisis. When the leader of the group walked into homeroom, her face was flushed with frustration. Her once immaculate hair looked hastily tied back, and her designer clothes seemed less polished than usual. She carried her lifeless phone in one hand, shaking it occasionally as if hoping it would magically turn on. Her sidekick trailed behind. Her, clutching her own useless device, muttering under her breath about someone paying for this. The enforcer followed silently, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, while the tech-obsessed member sniffled quietly, still mourning the loss of her digital world. As the day went on, their desperation grew more obvious. Without their phones, they were cut off from their social media empires, the platforms where they posted glamorous selfies, shared biting comments, and controlled much of the school's social dynamics. Suddenly, their influence felt like a house of cards collapsing around them. Students whispered and pointed as they passed by, some laughing openly at their misfortune. Others simply stared, curious to see how the mighty had fallen. Teachers noticed the shift too. For years, the Elite Four had dominated the hallways, bending rules and manipulating situations to suit their needs. But now, without their phones to document every move or send threats via text, they seemed almost powerless. Even the strictest teachers couldn't help but exchange knowing glances when the leader raised her voice during class, demanding answers. About the mysterious malfunction that had destroyed their devices, rumors swirled endlessly. Some students joked that an alien invasion had targeted only the Elite Four's phones. Others speculated it might have been a prank gone wrong, though no one could explain how 4 phones could fail simultaneously in such a precise way. A few kids suggested it might be karma catching up to them, pointing out all the times the Elite Four had bullied or humiliated others. But none of these theories stuck, not because they weren't believable, but because no one could imagine anyone brave enough or clever enough to take on the most powerful clique in school. What no one realized was that the truth lay hidden, in plain sight. The new girl continued going about her days as if nothing unusual had happened. She sat quietly in class, took detailed notes, and avoided drawing attention to herself. During lunch, she ate alone at her usual corner table, keeping her head down and focusing on her food. To everyone else, she appeared exactly as she always had, calm, composed, and unassuming. But beneath her quiet exterior, there was a spark of satisfaction. She hadn't expected the EMP device to cause such widespread chaos. It had worked better than she'd hoped. Watching the Elite Four flounder without their phones gave her a sense of justice she hadn't felt before. It wasn't revenge, not really. It was about evening the score, showing them that their power wasn't absolute. They had tried to humiliate her in front of everyone, cutting her braids like it was some kind of cruel game. Now they were experiencing what it felt like to lose something precious. Still, she knew the fallout wouldn't stop there. The Elite Four weren't the type to let things slide. If anything, they doubled down on finding whoever or whatever had caused the destruction of their phones. And as much as she wanted to stay invisible, she also understood that staying silent might not protect her forever. By midweek, cracks began to show in the Elite Four's carefully constructed facade. Their leader, usually so confident and commanding, started snapping at classmates over minor things. When someone accidentally bumped into her in the hallway, she lashed out with venomous words, accusing them of being involved in the phone sabotage. Her sidekick tried to rally support by spreading rumors about other students, claiming they'd heard whispers implicating certain kids in the cafeteria. But instead of rallying allies, their accusations only made people distance themselves further. Meanwhile, old secrets started surfacing online. Someone anonymously leaked screenshots of private messages sent by the Elite Four, messages filled with insults, threats, and embarrassing confessions. One message revealed how the leader had mocked a teacher behind her back, calling her pathetic, and vowing to get her fired. Another exposed the sidekick's habit of stealing homework answers from classmates and passing them off as her own. The enforcer's texts included angry rants about teammates on the sports teams, threatening to bench anyone who crossed her, and the tech-obsessed members' photos? They revealed far more than she ever intended, including flirtatious exchanges. With boys she claimed to hate in public, these leaks hit hard. Parents got wind of the scandals, confronting the Elite Four with questions they couldn't answer. Teachers called meetings to address the bullying behavior documented in the messages. Even students who had once feared or admired the clique began turning against them, sharing stories of their own encounters with the group's cruelty. Through it all, the new girl remained quiet. She didn't post anything online, nor did she claim responsibility for the chaos unfolding around her. Yet, those who paid close attention noticed subtle changes in her demeanor. There was a lightness to her step now, a confidence that hadn't been there before. She smiled more often, even engaging in brief conversations with classmates who approached her. Slowly but surely, she was becoming someone people looked up to, not because she demanded respect, but because she earned it. One afternoon, during study hall, a student cautiously approached her desk. "Hey," he said softly, glancing around to make sure no one else was listening. "I just wanted to say, thanks, for standing up to them." She looked up, surprised but not alarmed. After a moment, she nodded slightly, her expression unreadable. "It's not about me," she replied simply. "It's about making sure no one gets treated like that again." Her words lingered in the air long after the boy returned to his seat. Around her, other students exchanged glances, realizing for the first time that maybe, just maybe, they weren't alone in wanting change. The Elite Four's reign of terror had gone unchecked for too long, but now cracks were forming in their foundation. And at the center of it all stood the new girl, silent yet unstoppable. As the week drew to a close, the Elite Four huddled together during lunch, their usual table now surrounded by empty seats. They spoke in hushed tones, casting suspicious glances at anyone nearby. Their leader clenched her fists, her jaw tight with frustration. "We need to figure out who did this," she hissed, her voice trembling with anger. "Whoever it is, they're not getting away with it." Her friends nodded, though none of them seemed convinced they'd find answers anytime soon. For the first time in years, they felt truly vulnerable and utterly powerless. And somewhere across the cafeteria, the new girl sipped her water, her lips curving into the faintest hint of a smile. By the time graduation day arrived, Willow Creek High felt like a completely different place. The once unshakable grip of the Elite Four had crumbled, leaving behind a school that was quieter but also freer. Students no longer walked on eggshells, afraid of saying or doing something that might catch the clique's attention. Instead, hallways buzzed with genuine laughter and conversations that weren't laced with fear or gossip. Change had come slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, but now it was undeniable that the Elite Four themselves were shadows of their former selves. Their leader, who used to command every room she entered, now sat quietly in class, avoiding eye contact with both teachers and classmates. Her sharp tongue had dulled. Her cutting remarks fell flat because no one paid attention anymore. The sidekick, once quick to mock others, found herself isolated, her snarky comments met with indifference rather than applause. The enforcer tried to hold on to her tough girl image, but without her crew backing her up, she seemed more lost than intimidating. And the tech-obsessed member? She spent most of her time staring wistfully at borrowed phones, scrolling through social media accounts she could barely recognize as her own. Their fall from grace wasn't just about the shattered phones. It was everything that followed. The leaked messages and photos painted a picture of cruelty and manipulation that shocked even those who thought they knew them best. Parents demanded explanations, teachers issued warnings, and students whispered among themselves about how karma had finally caught up. By senior year, the Elite Four had become cautionary tales examples of what happens when power is wielded carelessly. Meanwhile, the new girl had transformed in ways no one expected, not least of all herself. At first, she'd simply wanted to survive high school without losing herself in the process. But somewhere along the way, she realized she had the power to change things, not just for herself, but for everyone around her. Her quiet strength inspired others to speak up, to stand together instead of cowering under the weight of fear. Slowly, the culture of the school shifted. Bullies found fewer allies, while kindness began to take root in unexpected places. On graduation day, the atmosphere was electric. Families filled the bleachers, cheering loudly as students filed onto the field in their caps and gowns. The sun shone brightly overhead, casting long shadows across the grass. It was a moment meant for celebration, a culmination of years of hard work, growth, and resilience. When the new girl's name was called, she stepped forward confidently, her braids tied neatly into intricate patterns that framed her face. As she crossed the stage to receive her diploma, the crowd erupted into applause, not just polite clapping, but genuine cheers. Some students stood up, whistling and shouting encouragement. Teachers exchanged proud smiles, nodding approvingly. As she shook hands with the principal, for a brief moment, she paused at the edge of the stage, scanning the audience below. Her eyes landed on the Elite Four, seated together near the back. They looked small now, diminished, not just physically, but emotionally. Their heads were bowed, their expressions blank. Gone was the arrogance that had defined them for so long. In its place was a hollow emptiness, a reminder of what happens when you build your world on fear instead of respect. But the new girl didn't linger on them. Instead, she turned her gaze toward the rest of the crowd, the classmates who had supported her, the teachers who had believed in her, and the friends she had made along the way. For the first time in months, she allowed herself a genuine smile. It wasn't triumphant or smug. It was soft, warm, and full of gratitude. As she returned to her seat, the ceremony continued, but her mind drifted back to the journey that had brought her here. She thought about the day her braids were cut, the humiliation, the anger, the overwhelming sense of helplessness. She remembered the hours spent researching, planning, and building the MP device, channeling her emotions into something productive. And she recalled the chaos that followed, watching the Elite Four unravel piece by piece until nothing remained of their reign. Through it all, she had learned an important lesson. Real power doesn't come from tearing others down, it comes from lifting yourself and those around you up. Revenge may have been tempting, but justice was far more satisfying. By staying true to herself and refusing to play their game, she had not only reclaimed her dignity, but also helped create a safer, kinder environment for everyone. After the ceremony ended, families spilled onto the field, hugging graduates and snapping photos. The new girl posed for pictures with her mom, who beamed with pride, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you," her mom whispered, pulling her into a tight embrace. You've grown so much." She nodded, blinking back tears. Of her own. "Thanks, Mom. I couldn't have done it without you." Later, as she wandered through the crowd, she was stopped repeatedly by classmates thanking her for standing up to the bullies. Some admitted they had doubted her at first, assuming her silence meant weakness. Others confessed they wished they'd had the courage to do what she did. Each conversation reinforced what she already knew. Change starts with action, but it grows through connection. One particularly meaningful moment came when a younger student approached her nervously. Hi," the girl stammered, clutching her program tightly. "I just wanted to say thank you. You showed me that it's okay to be different and that we don't have to let people treat us badly." The new girl knelt down slightly. Meeting the girl's eyes, "Thank you," she replied gently, "for reminding me why it mattered." By the end of the day, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned shades of orange and pink, she stood alone for a moment, reflecting on everything that had changed. High school hadn't been easy, not for her, and certainly not for many others. But it had taught her resilience, empathy, and the value of using her voice, whether loud or silent. She glanced one last time at the Elite Four, who were packing up their belongings and heading toward their cars. There was no bitterness in her heart, only a quiet understanding. They weren't villains, they were products of their choices, just like everyone else. Maybe someday they'd learn from their mistakes. Maybe they wouldn't. Either way, it wasn't her responsibility to decide. With that final thought, she turned away, walking toward her family waiting patiently by the parking lot. Ahead of her lay a future filled with possibilities, challenges, and opportunities to continue making a difference. For the first time in a long time, she felt ready for whatever came next, and as she climbed into the car, waving goodbye to the school that had shaped her in ways she never could have imagined, she knew one thing for certain: she wasn't just leaving Willow Creek High behind. She was taking a piece of it with her, the part that mattered most.